Okay, aloha mai kako, mai ke awalau o pu'uloa ai ka pili o ka he velina mai ke aloha o Hono'uli'uli. Aloha and welcome to Mo'o ʻŌlelo. This is our third presentation. My name is Kavana. I'm the Hawaii Pacific Resources Librarian here at UH West Oahu. Mo'o ʻŌlelo is part of the Big Read Hawaii, which seeks to broaden our understanding of the world through and its people through reading, conversation, art, and connections. So we'll be sharing a link to the full schedule of events for the Big Read in the chat, as well as a link to post all of your questions. So I am super excited for today's guest because we were supposed to have him in the library in person, and then the pandemic hit like maybe that same week that we were supposed to have this event. So I was super happy and stoked to have an opportunity to host him again virtually. And so he can talk about his awesome work as a comic book creator and founder. So right now I'll turn it over to Chris to introduce himself and tell us his Mo'o ʻŌlelo.
Aloha, and how's it, everybody? My name is Christopher Caravalho. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad we actually got to do this, even if it's virtual. I love the face-to-face interaction, but this will work, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. So I'm assuming that you must know a little bit about me if you're here listening to the blog. So let me just give you a brief synopsis of who I am and what I've been doing. So back when I was a kid, for me, life was just, my happy place was always either Saturday morning cartoons or spin rack comic books at 7-Eleven. That was my thing. That was my joy. Yeah. I bring that up because back in those times too, it was kind of a struggle for me to be liking those things, because a lot of those things, my dad and my stepmom considered them to be a bad influence, that I would get corrupted off of comic books. So but my passion and my happiness to get a hold of one of those things for the art and the stories that they were, and to just lose yourself and escape in a storyline, I just loved it too much. So I did the contraband thing, slipped comics underneath my shirt, with a square body coming home, if you can imagine that, and started hiding my books under the mattress. And my dad would discover my hiding places. I'd get a little scoldings and reprimanding, and then I would get a little more clever. So towards the end, we lived in Kailua at the time, so our house was on stilts, and I would go crawling underneath the house, and I was digging holes already like a pirate, and just storing comic books and covering it up. Then that's the way I kind of lived. But comics, it gets a bad rap, or at least it did back then, because maybe the topics which are a little bit more, they would think not for kids. But I learned a lot from comics growing up. I learned just to, you can stand up for yourself. You can, if you get knocked down, you just keep trying and find a way. And those heroic themes it's something that that really left an impression on me growing up. And I think the passion, it just never faded. Maybe it was because it was forbidden fruit. I have no idea, but I just loved it too much to be able to give it up. So in 2014, let's flash forward, after I had a family, I got a career with the city, and I think it was about maybe the 15th year of my career with the city that I was like, this what I do is very robotic. What I do is it's very, there's no creativeness to it. And I could tell that, my mindset and my mood was just kind of like suffering because of that, because I am someone that just enjoyed writing. I enjoyed drawing. I was the quiet kind of introvert in the back, of the classroom. And I would draw my friends into superheroes. Well, I didn't really have friends at that time, but it was a good icebreaker. I learned to get people to come have conversations with me, and I kind of started from there. So I was able to figure it out, even though it was kind of social awkward. But so about 2014, I was going through that tough period. Other things were going on in my life, and I said, what, Chris, what made you happy? Can you remember? Because right now it's not happening for you. Just life was happening. And so I said, you know, I enjoyed comics. I enjoyed reading. I loved writing and creating. Do something with that. What did you always want to do? And that was for me, like growing up, with, watching cartoons like Super Friends, reading books like Avengers, Justice League, Teen Titans. I said, I want to see a local superhero team. I want to see that. I always wanted to see that. But, I convinced myself about 18 years old to say, you're not good enough. I thought, I'm going to get a job at Marvel or DC. I want to be, raking the bucks. My dreams were really, I went full over the moon. But when I would compare my art and, my, attempt at stories to like professionals, I was like, man, I'm not good enough for that. So I just stored it into the closet. And granted, with that career of just being, having to be that robot, in a job, I said, okay, time to open the closet and bust out the comics and say, hey, I want to create that superhero team. So that first superhero team I decided to create was called Aumakua Guardians of Hawaii. Let me just share that screen. Can I see it now?
Not yet.
Here we go. You guys see it? Yes. Okay. So, and here's the team, Aumakua Guardians of Hawaii. And I wanted to create a team of superheroes for present day Hawaii. And for me, what that meant was to have, a team of the many races and faces that we have in present day Hawaii. And because a lot of us were just products of plantation days, yeah, with the immigrants coming in. And it doesn't, solely fall upon like, us being Hawaiian. Yes, I'm part Hawaiian, but then I got Portuguese, I got Puerto Rican, there's Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Samoan. I had all these friends that I was playing with on the playground, and I wanted that representation of all those different people coming together. Marvel or DC, the bigger ones, at that time, they would never do something like that. They're getting a lot better, but they wouldn't probably want that challenge enough. So I said, what the heck? My first guy was Gecko Man, the guy you see in the front, crossing his arms. He was that first characters from Hawaii that I did. And then it kind of just blossomed from there. I had to do a little, what would they look like? What would they act like? And I kind of just built upon it. So I started with this great team. On the right of Gecko Man is Sister Shark. She's my local girl from Waimanalo. Kind of like a werewolf, but like a shark version of that. You hear a lot about those men that can, manifest into a shark, but she's like the girl version. You do have girl versions in Gods in the Ocean as well. The guy on the left of Gecko Man, he has like that insignia, kind of looks like a little bit like Iron Man, but he's Portuguese man of war, and he's Portuguese, obviously. I'm Portuguese, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make him the smartest guy, because I lived with all the jokes all my life of the Portuguese jokes. I would get it. So I said, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make him the smartest. So that's what I did. Right in behind with that royal guard costume that you'll see like Iolani Palace sometimes when they do presentations. The Royal Hawaiian Guard is kind of like their kumo, their constant, their uncle. That's the go-to guy with his wisdom. He leads this group, this band of heroes, young heroes upcoming in present day Hawaii. I wanted to just state too that Aumakua existed in the times of in olden times too. But it was, it was all, Hawaii people. It was, the Kanaka, they created it. And then as the years progressed, this is like the present day version. Yeah. So then you have all these different races. To the left of him is my Korean girl, roller derby girl. She's so hot. She had her own little story in one of my series. The guy in the back with it kind of looks like Kukui Nutley a little bit. And with the zip code on his chest, that's Super Size Sole. I lived in like Kalihi for a good 18 years of my life. And every time I looked out the window, sometimes if you guys got imaginations and daydream a lot like I do, I would look because I could see KPT, yeah. And I would think, it would be really cool if there was like this big giant, like a Super Size Sole just putting his arms on the buildings and just resting, leaning back. I was like, and I would envision that, yeah, and I just thought that was a great idea for a character. And you see kind of like a shape-shifting, size kind of guy from, I think Ant-Man does that in Marvel movies. The guy who's blowing out the flame, that's Mighty Moke. He's my West Side Warrior. He is like he's been blessed with lots of power. Unfortunately, he's kind of like, he's still young. So what he does with the powers a lot of times is not the best decisions. And a lot of people question him. That's like, he kind of like a little bit of stereotypical if he talks like a Moke and this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, who didn't make mistakes and did wrong things when you were younger? It's all about learning. He's got a good mentor in Royal Hawaiian Guard, and that relationship is going to grow and blossom too. And right in the very back, you see this guy with these goggles. His name is Phantom Surfer, and he is actually one of those characters that come at the last minute for something. If it's something huge and help is needed, he sort of just turns up, and his identity remains a secret. So that's basically the team, the core team that I had fused together, that I considered, okay, this is the team that I want. Super Friends had their thing, Justice League had their thing, X-Men had their thing, but I wanted that island group, and here they were. It took actually a few years to even get to the point of launching that book. I had no clue of what to do, how to do it. What I did know is I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to do it my way, where it wouldn't get watered down. Yeah, because locals, we have like a specific culture, especially when it comes to like, our banter, pidgin and our island humor. It's missed a lot of times. Yeah, you don't see that on like a TV show, perhaps like maybe Hawaii Five-0, or if like a movie production comes down. We're kind of like, the locals a lot of times are left in the background and amongst scenery that they have. But I really wanted to explore and show and share, number one, this local like true essence. So in other words, like when I make a book, I really consider like, those people who live like on the mainland, who are forced to kind of like live there for whatever reason, and they really miss home. So when they crack open that book of like Amakua or whatever book I'm doing, and they're reading the dialogue, they can laugh and they can remember, and they say, yeah, this is like totally home. This person reminds me of this person reminds me of that person. They see locations, and I just want them, I want them to just get excited, to bring them joy, and maybe to inspire. Maybe they want to make their own story. And those are like the kind of like the icing on the cake of why I do this and what gets me excited and keeps me driven. So the Amakua was I mean, it's a whole thing. I only did it like thinking I was only going to do one issue. It's funny. So I was like, okay, bucket list. I'm going to throw everything in there in the kitchen sink. I'm just going to have fun with it. Just go for laughs and just, have a good time having all this action coming together. But I ended up saying, you know what, this is too fun. And the response I got, and I think I got that time too, I had a little bit of media. And so people got excited about it. And I guess for a lot of people, just like me, it would be the equivalent of having a professional football team or basketball team from Hawaii. And here's our superhero team, right? I mean, we're kind of like, Hawaii is always considered like the underdogs. And I love a good underdog story, or, a team. And I think that's what the Amakua is. It's that team coming together, all mismatched motley crew, but they make it work, just kind of like how it is over here anyway in Hawaii, that a lot of people from the mainland can learn from, I believe, right? So it's definitely, it was definitely exciting to see the reaction I had, and I kept going. I started to do, Amakua all the way to number 6, I think I'm at right now. And what had happened was, like some of the characters got like a lot of more, like people would say, oh, I love this character. I was like, you know what? And the favorite one I got was Sister Shark. So I did a spin-off with her, and I created her own series. So here's my local girl from Wamanalo who kind of like a little bit of Hulk and changes into Sister Shark. And she's just really blossomed. And it's funny too, like I think I wrote in one of my bio cards that I had at one point that she worked at Sea Life Park, and Sea Life Park contacted me and say, hey, we heard about Sister Shark. And they were like, oh, we'd love to have you, set up a table and get some, I guess exposure at that time. I was like, well, I never really considered that it would open other opportunities once you put something out there, because I think as a person, these are kind of like personal things. Like, like I'm kind of introverted, like I said. So to share something, you're basically sharing yourself, and of course there's that wonder if people are going to accept it or just say this is ridiculous and that's it. But for someone like Sister Shark, I mean, she keeps going. We actually partner with Sea Life Park twice for what is called like a Keiki HeroCon, and what that means is like, it's like a superhero event. So we do have like Sister Shark, and here's a good version. So you never know what can happen if you put your dream and your passion on the line and step forward and say, here, try this. And you can see like how awesome it is. There's the actual Sister Shark running around. It's crazy. So that's my Sister Shark King. It's weird that the doors that open up and the people, you never know who's going to come to your table to talk about the book. And Duren was actually, that's the cosplayer for Sister Shark. She walked up to our table one time wanting to get one issue for her dad. And it turned into not just them being fans of the book, but like, look at that. She's now the cosplayer. So it's strange to think that, your creation could be actually something more. And I firmly believe that our island culture and not just Hawaiian too, but all the different races, it's really untapped. There's a lot of untapped resources that people kind of just overlook and pass because they think it's not marketable, but it's too good. It's too good not to share. I mean, and I think of it like all the different stories and the history that we have here. Yes, Hawaiian history, there's plenty, but there's also stuff for the Japanese side, for the Filipino side, for the Chinese, it's all inclusive. But it was just my pleasure to be able to be that person. And I didn't think it was going to be me. I just wanted somebody else to do it. And here I am. I'm like, now I'm like carrying the torch that I never thought I'd carry. It's like, yeah, I'm going to lead the way now and, create this local hero universe. And it keeps on building. And it's strange. Just, I can't, other things are happening behind the scene that it's just, I kind of get in disbelief, and I have to slow down and think, whoa, this is really something that can get even bigger. And that's largely, I would say largely in part by just the fans and, friends and family that I had who was there from the very beginning and that really pushed me and says, hey, we believe in what you do. We believe in your project, your projects. So with Amakua and Sister Shark, it came, I wanted another spin. I wanted one that was more, I guess it was during a lot of time that, everybody was divided. There was such division just in the world and banter on Facebook and all that stuff. So I wanted a specific comic to address that. And that comic, let me post this one up, was the Nui Nui Warriors. And what that meant was like the theme of this particular book that I wanted to put out there was that despite our differences, and we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, but we can all work together to succeed and be stronger together. That was the theme of what when I dived into the book, and I think I kept it true to that. Lokahi is that big word to come together. And there was a lot of shout outs to the old King Kamehameha saying they would yell Imua when they would fight the villains or the evil darkness creatures that were infesting the earth, which they came down to destroy and save the earth back in the day. So I felt this was a really strong comic book, had a really great message. It probably was a little bit kind of softer. People didn't really hear about it, but I was really proud of this one. this really got that point across that, yeah, together is always better than just staying divided. Even though, like I said, you know, like the colors of the rainbow, we're all kind of like all different, yeah. But I was really, really super stoked by doing that one too. And then when the COVID hit, like Kuma was saying, yeah, I was stuck. I was stuck, you know, not having any conventions and any interaction with people. So I was like, and you kind of, it's like you're severing a connection, meaning like when I go to a table, when I'm talking about, you know, my comics, people can see that passion I have for it and the excitement in my voice or my facial expressions. But it's different when you're trying to sell it online, and then it's like, people don't understand. It's like, oh, okay, there's just, you know, that's this and this. But when you're actually talking to someone, it's a whole different story, and can honestly see that you're, you know, this person has a purpose, they have passion, and they feed off that energy. It's good for them too, yeah. You know, that just that sharing of that mana for better, you know, not a better choice of words, but that's a good one to just feel that excitement. But so beginning of the COVID, I was thinking, okay, now what am I going to do now? So I said, okay, I'll double down. I'll write some other stories. So I was fiddling around writing stories, and it just came to me. There was a missing piece in all this time that I was doing like local superheroes, which I love to do, but I really wanted to go back and pay, like, you know, tribute or honor to legends of Hawaii, like legends of people in the past who really made an impact on our islands. And to me, I thought, what better person, you know, what better person than King Kamehameha, right? And I was like, yeah, but immediately, if you're in the community and you've grown up here, you know that, like, kind of like a, you know, he's either loved or hated, but a character so iconic like that, people are going to just come for the wood shop and just tear it down and say, hey, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And you're like, okay, you know, kind of was on the fence, but, you know, I'm just going to go for it. Let me just go get an artist for that, because I wanted a really strong local boy artist that really understood the culture. And that was DJ Cavalcante, who I've worked with in the past. We did several issues of Amakua together, but this one, he understood the importance, I guess, the importance of this story. And at the same time, we were both like, you know what, we're going to get blasted. Yeah. He goes, yes, everyone will come and say they're the expert and they're going to shoot it down and stuff. It's like, I said, but we can only tell. I mean, I don't, you know, there's not much about what we were doing, like, meaning there's a lot of books and resources, but for the most part, his early childhood, a lot of this stuff was missing. So you kind of had to figure it out, but we're still waffling on that, actually. And it was like, I think maybe like getting closer to the summer of last year, when I call this, I don't call this coincidence, I really call it fate. It was when Kamehameha schools, the Kapalama campus, their internship program, they actually contacted me. He says, hey, do you mind taking some interns? I'm like, okay, wait a second. Here's me and DJ discussing the project. Here's Kamehameha coming to look for me. And they want to, you know, they wanted to have this, you know, this interaction. So I was like, this is, like I said, this is not coincidence, it's a sign, more like a sign. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for it. So I said, yeah, DJ, let's roll. So that's what we did. I took on this intern, and she was terrific. Moki Hana was her name. Hardworking, intelligent. And then I just saw how diligent, and she was meeting all her deadlines. And I was like, this is amazing. This is a good, you know, great experience that, you know, I'm having, and I'm, you know, teaching her lessons. And then I was like, okay, I didn't tell her, but I said, oh, let me just see. Let's give her a project. So I give her a project of draw. I say, hey, draw Kamehameha. And so she did. And then I looked it over, and then I was like, oh, you know what? We're going to do a story about Kamehameha, and we're going to have a Kickstarter. I would love to include your comic cover that you just made. You didn't realize you were doing it. You just made. I want to include it in as a variant cover. And oh, she was ecstatic. She was thrilled. I can tell she was really happy about that. And so So with the collective effort of 2 other interns, and can you guys see it? Yes, yeah. We made this particular cover. Not only that, but Chloe, she helped with the translation from English to ʻŌlelo, Hawaii. And I was like, man, this is a first. This is my first based on, real events, and my first time I ever translated this to ʻŌlelo Hawaii. And I was like over the moon. And I know like my tutu would have been just absolutely thrilled. She was like deep into like history and the culture. So I know she's looking down and she's like, yeah, this Portuguese boy, he actually did something. And I know she's proud. And this particular book had, especially the ʻŌlelo Hawaii version, would not have been possible without the collaborative effort of these ladies. And you'll see that it says their names and it shows what they did and how they contributed. We did a Kickstarter in March 1st. It actually ended today, the 31st at 6 a.m. in the morning. Very excited and thrilled to say that we exceeded with the goal. Far exceeded actually, and we can actually not only complete it, but it probably has room to get another one. So not only like in this particular issue, I focused on Kamehameha's origin story, which from his death-defying birth to all that lessons he learned in his childhood to make him a better, not just a better man, but maybe even a better king. And then up until like when he was a warrior training under Kekuhaupio. And that guy, see, people don't even know these characters, but they're like amazing if you read stories like Rulers and Chiefs and stuff, or there's another book that just talks about Kekuhaupio, and you listen to how they describe them and stuff, and all of them are just amazing things that they did and then accomplished. You're like, wow. And I think one of the lessons I learned from Kamehameha too was just how determined he was. He didn't just win. I mean, he failed a lot. He failed a lot, but he didn't give up. I mean, can you imagine just having that responsibility even as a young kid to know, like, you know what, dude, you're the one that's going to unite us. You're the one who's going to conquer. I don't know about you guys, but especially if you're like trying to watch him too, yeah. And you go like, how am I going to teach this kid, to be not just a good king, but a great king? It has to be that had to have been pressure as well. All I'm saying. So, but we, man, there was just so many people that really when I mentioned I was doing it, there was so much support and aloha from people, and excited about the book. And I get kind of overwhelmed right now because I'm thinking of all the different people who stepped forward. I had not only did I have Mokihana do a variant cover, I actually asked Brooke Parker, who he's actually a descendant of Kamehameha, and he's a local artist. If you go to like hotels or certain museums, you will see his art. He's equivalent to me as the local day Herb Kane, in that this works really offer like this, I would say almost like a telescope into the past. I mean, you get to see what it could have looked like, and it's so powerful to see these images because you don't have them. So for artists like Herb Kane and for Brooke Parker to have that, it was a great resource for us, especially DJ creating these characters that he had to kind of like pull out of thin air because there's no references. Okay, we have these. Let it be our guide, and let the stories about how people describe Kamehameha, how they describe Kekuhaupio or Naeole, how they describe them, and try to transfer it into the characters and infuse them. Because it's difficult. I'm going to tell you, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy creating a story that weaved together, that had a theme, and to be conscious about, okay, you can, even the little things, people will notice the little things. Like for me, I'll give you one example. Prime example of this is there was a scene in the story I wrote, and not really thinking, okay, they're in a grass hut. All the chiefs are surrounding, they're seated around a bonfire. And then DJ tells me, Chris, I don't think they'd be sitting around a bonfire in a grass hut. And so I was like, you know what? You're right. He goes, dude, they had like these kukui nuts, and you probably see them if you Google this after, lined up, stacked up with a stick, and they kind of light it like a candle, and it goes down, down, down. So when you see that scene in the book, if you guys ever get the book, I think some of you might have supported it, but if you see that scene with the kahuna, the kahunas, think of me and this Portuguese that just thought of like there was going to be this huge bonfire inside the grass hut and not really thinking about the repercussions of that. But it was those little things that people would definitely pick up on. And I'm glad DJ was there to catch whatever loose balls I dropped. But regardless, we already know that for the main thing, we know we're going to get some will like, some will don't like, but in the end, it comes down to intention, especially when you're covering like a historical figure. I think then if the intention is is pure and good and it's just aloha, and you want, your goal is to get someone excited, get someone to read, get someone to, you know, pick up something where they maybe not want to read a textbook, but they got something else that could be their gateway to get into a book. And that happens, and I helped lead that person there. I'm all for it. Even if you disagree with me, even if you bust out a book in front of me when you slap it on my comic and say, no, look over here, I will say, thank you, great. Thank you for sharing this with me, because now we're talking. Now we're having this conversation. And when you have that conversation, they don't get forgotten. It stirs it up. You know what I mean? It stirs it up, and it brings their energy and mana back. I mean, those are good things, because it just, I guess all I can say is it perpetuates it, solidifies, you know, people talking about our history and our culture, yeah, in Hawaii and for Hawaiians in general. So it's just such a raw, I'm sorry, I came up for 30 days of this campaign and working it. I do Kickstarters for a lot of the projects, making comics. If you guys ever want to make one, just know that going into it, it is quite expensive. It's not like it's definitely out of love. You're not there to make millions of bucks, but I feel like it's my purpose and passion to share stories that are relevant to local culture, and now making the shift to Hawaiian history. I'm excited to do more, especially like looking over like Rulers and Chiefs. I keep talking about this book, but I'm telling you, I could have read this when I was a lot younger, because I didn't realize that it was an easy read. I thought it was just going to be a real documentary, but there's a lot of exciting things. So there's a lot of books, and I think I'm going to probably throw like a little, like, I suggest these books. So for that parent who buys that comic and says, hey, now I have a resource. There's other books, yeah, inside the comic that I can refer to. I think I used to like that too. When I used to watch this one show, it was called Voyagers. I know that's dating myself, but it was about this boy and this guy, this time traveler, and the boy accidentally went with him back in time, and they had this thing called Omni, and if it blinked red, then that means history is wrong, and they had to fix it. But it was their spin to learn history, and I learned a lot of different history from their, you know, Ability Kid or whatever the topic was, but it always said at the end of that TV show, it's like, if you want to know more about Billy the Kid, check your local library and You know, they gave a little announcement at the end, which I thought it was so valid, because it's like, here it is. Like, we just entertained you, but not only we entertain you, now we're going to educate you. We're going to show you what the next step is. And I think that's what comics can do. It can provide that step where, you know, this is kind of like our competition, you know, this for the kids. So if I can get them, and if I can send them, you know, how, you know what I mean? That's the job. And I'm proud that I did that. Yeah. Despite whatever other person may think, I'm proud that I could do that. Am I rattling on? I'm sorry. I see 135 now. You know, I wanted to kind of explain how I do make these characters. Chime in when I go over, but I just want to share real briefly. If you're here for the fact that, oh, he was going to talk about how does he create these ideas? Well, it's like anything else. It's experience, and it's you know, research. It's, you know, having conversations, knowing different people. You know, like creating these characters, especially if it's super powered. a tactic and a way that I use is, for instance, a certain, like if it's a superpower, a certain power set reflects a personality. For instance, if someone has like super fast, their personality would be probably hypergenic, just super excited all the time. If someone like my character, So Hot, if they are, you know, a flame type character, maybe, you know, they're explosive, they're just foul-mouthed, they're just in your face kind of personality. That's what I focus on. So that's part of it. And what it goes down to creating a character that people can relate to, people can identify with, and you do that by, it's not a cape and a mask won't do it. You need to just give them that personality. You need to give them history. You need to pour stuff into them. You have to fill it up. And it can't be just, you can't rely on just capes, masks, and powers. It's all about getting the person, another word I get, worrying about your character is another one, keeping them real, keeping them with problems, and I think Stan Lee really accomplished that when he went into Marvel with his characters. You know, he gave them, you know, these were heroes who were flawed. These are heroes that were imperfect. They had issues. They had rent to pay. And these are topics that you can relate to. So it gets people interested in talk about it. A difficult character to write, I mean, if you guys could really think about, would be someone like Superman, who was all these freaking powers. And so you read a book about Superman and it can get very boring fast because it's like, okay, you know, he's gonna be okay because he's so powerful. But if you have like a character, if you have like I mean, of course he has kryptonite, but if you have a weakness, and I try to add them within my characters. For instance, Sister Shark. Sister Shark has her shark-like abilities, but when she's frightened, you know, under stress, then she'll revert back to her human self. But her human self has like this fear, and she can't swim. So it's that added little flavor, that little extra that makes her more human. And like, okay, then you worry about her. There's that concern for that person. You want them to succeed. You want them to get up and keep fighting. Supersized Sully, I make him a big teddy bear. He's a really nice guy. But when he gets bigger, he wears those like shades. He wears those shades on. Every time he gets bigger, his eyesight gets worse. So if you can imagine this big, huge guy walking downtown and trying to carefully not step on anyone because he can't really see anymore at a certain height. So, you know, it's difficult. So every character, whether it's their personalities or you know, their powers, I try to add a little bit of stress, challenge, you know, some sort of a disability that makes it difficult, because the journey of life is hard. So it can't be easy for your characters, because if it's easy for your characters, you're the person who's stressing at home, who wants to escape, says, man, this guy has no bad luck. I can't even relate to this. So it's that connection that you want, you know, that people relate to your characters. That's a kind of learned throughout the years of just reading books, of why I like that certain book, why I like this certain team, why I like this certain hero, which is, if you ask me what my favorite hero is, I'm going to tell you Robin, not Batman. It's Robin. And you're going to say, well, do you like, you know, if you like this guy in green panties? Well, that's not the point. It's if you've ever read The New Teen Titans by George Perez and Mark Wolfman, you'll see that took like a very, I wouldn't call him D-list. He's well known, but as far as, he's not like the coolest thing, but they made him cool. And if you can make a character that looks like Robin in green panties to be cool, as a writer, I mean, you're up there with the gods if you could do something like that. And that's what they did. They made that character that you always worried about him. He's trying his best. He's struggling to keep up with everybody else with superpowers, like Batman does, but he did it in the shadow of Batman. So making your characters believable, making them interesting. For me, making them having that local flavor, that's what I want to continue doing. I don't see me doing anything else. I want to keep it as real as possible. Always. And if you know, God willing, it moves on to like an animation or a movie, I want to make sure that I do have the say of, yeah, I want to keep it, don't water it down. I want people to be talking pidgin. I think that's where a lot of the issues are when people try to interpret their vision of what Hawaii is. Yeah, you're missing a lot of the meat, the source, which I told you was untapped. So I'm blessed to be, you know, to have all this. I mean, I just want to keep going, and to keep going, it's via the fans. It's via, you know, family who believes in me, and you know, I won't stop. I can't, and I've got more ideas. As far as my future slate, what are you doing now, Chris? I'm working on Pele. That's my next. Where is she? She's back there, right there. And that's another one that's a revered character. That's not even a character. That's an actual goddess. But I have the knowledge that people like from the mainland who'd come here and oh, I'll just do this. I have the respect and humility to understand, don't mess with it. And I got enough Hawaiian blood to understand that too. But I want to present her in a way that it would be more acceptable, you know, via people in Hawaii, rather than I think Marvel did it one time. Oh my gosh, it was disastrous. But we won't go there. But I really want to make that a great story. I think September is the next one that I'm hoping to be complete by then. So you guys can look forward to that. But in a nutshell, creating superheroes, it's not too difficult. It's just, like I said, adding that personality, getting people invested, getting people excited, and worrying about your character. Those are traits you got to consider when you're writing it. You throw like 20 powers on them and make them like invincible or her invincible, people are going to just toss it and get bored. It's not going to work. So if you're considering you know, making a story, consider that too when you're even writing stories. If you're writing stories, that's the idea you have to keep. Main character has to be that. You got to give him challenges. You got to make it hard. If it's easy, then nobody cares, because they can't understand easy. Life kicks you. Yeah. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share. Normally, like if I was standing in front of you, I'd have like a little easel board and we'll do a little, let's make a hero together, you know, but I'm going to preserve that for the class and just maybe turn it over to questions if you got some.
Yeah, we do. We actually have a bunch of questions.
Oh, I wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so this one comes from Mike. He says comics like Watchmen, The Killing Joke, and Mouse have found themselves broadly studied in university settings these days. Can you share any comics you think deserve more critical attention? And can you give a shout out to any unknown comics that everyday people need to know about?
Okay, first off, let me just answer the last question first, which is, do I have any recommendations as far as, you know, there's a lot of local talent here, and you'll only discover their work if you actually go look. Yeah. And there's events that happen from time to time, unfortunately not for a while, but if you have that opportunity, go check out these wonderful local creators. You know, there's Sam Campos, who is my a huge inspiration for making local comics. He's the pioneer. He made Pineapple Man. Oh, let me point that out.
Yeah, there's actually a question about Pineapple Man too.
Was there one?
Which if you want to touch on this too, Alfie was wondering what the process was like to work with another local artist and how close is the comic artist community in Hawaii?
It was a lot closer when we had conventions, to be honest with you. We had what was called the Hawaii Comic Alliance, and we had gatherings, and we'd always see each other at events. There was, when I came out, the I'm a Cool one, there was no events, but it was weird. Like, so September 2014, and right the next year, boom, I think there was like 3. So that was a timing thing. So these local artists that you see, and is like Sam Campos, and he created Pineapple Man years ago, and he was that first guy that when I walked into the comic book store, saw Pineapple Man on the shelf. I was like, what is this? Pop, read, local banter, pigeon, locations that I recognize, Chinaman's hat, whatever. It was there, and I can remember the goosebumps. I was like, oh my God, somebody did it. And Sam, he didn't know it at the time, but he was a huge influence. And I was blessed to call him my friend now, but a little starstruck actually, even if they're, he doesn't think like whatever. But yeah, I mean, Pineapple Man was just something that it just, you're the first guy, you're the one that stepped forward and did it. And at that time when he sold, I think he did 4 comics, but you run out of money fast. He did 4, but they were outselling everything in locally, outselling Batman, who was big at the time, Wolverine, X-Men, everything. When he came out, and it was like, because it wasn't really done like that before. Since then, there's been other artists that stepped up. Todd Bernardi, he does a one called the Kukui Project. I would suggest that it's good storytelling. DJ Artist, he does a whole fantasy series too. He does Exilion. So John Murakami, he's been doing it longer than me. John is like a professional cartoonist. If you go walking in the card section, you'll see like local cards, and you see all the different funny artwork, Chihu, and then whatever else, Happy Graduation. That's John, and he does, that's all he does. So that's his bread and butter is making, you know, arts, but he has a great comic series called Gordon Rider. And the list goes on for comic creators, and I got to give shout outs to Chris Lohman, who's been with me since the beginning doing Amakua. Mark Gould is another one that I've worked with. So there's a ton out there, and I just probably covered just the tip of it. But if you actually go, just watch to see what the next event will be, which actually Mark's Garage is having one. You'll meet almost all of them, like at the, I think it's like April, the weekends, all the weekends of April on Saturdays, they'll be there at Mark's Garage. I don't have the information exactly on me, but go there. You'll be pleasantly surprised, and a lot of them do have their own books. Sam has actually wrote a whole nother Pineapple Man book just for this particular event. So it was great working with him too, because it was like a dream. It was like full circle for me. Like, I was the fan. I got to use Sam's character. He said he gave the blessing. I ran with it. I had fun doing the interaction with Pineapple Man, who I consider like, he's kind of like the brash hand Solo kind of type guy. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about regular DC and Marvel books. One of my favorite books of all time is Crisis Identity. It was actually written by Brad, I'm gonna kill his last name, Meltzer, who's actually writes stories. But he wrote that book. Like I said, if you as a writer can write a character that's considered like a D-list hero and make him awesome, or that villain scary, holy, and like I said, that's just godlike status. And for Crisis Identity, DC is my favorite book because they do just that. Yeah. But I mean, there's just so much. So yeah, let me just cut myself off there before I ramble.
No, that's perfect. So do you have any other comics that you think deserve more critical attention?
I mean, locally, I've kind of like just covered all the artists. For DC and Marvel, I think a lot of them are doing a lot of the present day political issues, I think, which traditionally comics have done in the past. But I'm just a romantic to the old stuff, like the old stories, like that have been actually made into movies now, like maybe not like the best translations, but I've always liked, you know, Teen Titans and X-Men, their storylines. I mean, I can't pinpoint this is the solid issue that needs to be something. I just was a fan of so much, and a lot of the stuff that's a great story. That to me, they've already either developed or making something into it. I mean, yeah, like I said, all the like C-listers now, because they had all the A-list heroes in the Marvel movies and stuff, they're all coming out to be like, you know, they're going underneath and doing like the B's and the C's list. So that's always fun to see that, you know, stories that weren't so well known, or they're actually getting pushed. And like I said, good writers make great movies, and if they're a fan of the books too, that's even better, because you can see like how the translations can get lost in movies. You know, I've heard, you know, there's some awful superhero translation. That's why I'm hoping one day, if God willing, if Amakua gets put up there, I want to be able to say, you know, you can't lose that island and local flavor. You can't, you don't have Amakua without it. Yeah,
I think you're right. Okay,
yeah.
so here's another great question. Not many people can reach the success that you have in this industry. What advice would you give to people who want to pursue a career in an industry that they're passionate in but seems risky?
Okay. you can still do it as just, as a passion. If you can't break in, and breaking in, that's, I mean, you gotta be really good. Not only gotta be really good, you gotta be really good with deadlines. And maybe sometimes initially the pay won't start. You got to start smaller. So yes, risky, especially when you live in Hawaii, where the rent and the gas and everything starts to just tack on, right? So, but if that's your happy place, if that's the thing that you get excited about, then don't let nothing stop you from doing it. Whether it just to have it on the side and just working on it, do it, because you're in the zone. You're happy, and when you feel it's ready, don't just throw it away. Like a lot of people, someone just reached out to me. He's the guy that actually wrote, you guys know the song, It's Aloha Friday. He just emailed me. And I think he's in the same dilemma where he had this great idea. I'm gonna kill it. Commander Shaka or something, like an actual hero that he was working on back in the day. And he's saying, I would love to see him do something and say, then good. That's the beginning. So next is a step. Now get it done. Don't let no one stand in your way, especially yourself. Work on it while you can. There are people out there that can point you to doors, but you gotta walk it. No one's gonna hold your hand and take you to the door. Yeah. I had to reach out to a lot of people. I had to network to figure out even how to start. Yeah. I mean, there's so much involved. You're talking about, to actually make the comic book, understanding the artist, everyone's job, the artist, the letterer, the colorist, what they do. And then like, how much is this artist worth to make this, or the letterer, how much do they cost? There's a lot of wheels to it, but don't let that, and you'll know if you're truly passionate in what you're doing, if that doesn't stop you. Keep pushing forward. It took me 2 years actually to actually, from the conception to actually moving forward. No idea, in the dark, talking to people online, say, hey, how did you do that? And mostly like a lot of the local people, they're really nice in that regard to say, hey, this is what you can do, or this avenue, try that way. So I was very fortunate to have contacted the right people that pointed to those doors to say, try that way. It's like, all right. And in the journey, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of times, freak this already. But I'm glad I didn't. And what makes it worthwhile too is when you get a reaction. If you're doing something you love, and it makes you happy, there's gonna be somebody out there that likes it. I guarantee you that. It doesn't have to be everybody. Everybody got different flavors. Just like when you go to an ice cream store. You may be making butterscotch. That's not everybody's taste, but it's still something that's worthwhile. It made you happy. There could be no wrong pursuing that. Yeah. So I'm blessed where I have a career, day job, which I retire next year. But it's sustained me, and I could still do this passion that I love. Yeah.
I think you shared a little bit earlier in the presentation, but we have about 5 minutes left. So what's next for Mana Comics?
Yeah, so it's just weird things. People reach out to me at the times I start to think things. I notice that it's like you put things in the universe, you say words, and things happen. Like I said, I'm gonna put this out. I want a show to go to Netflix. So I got a email from this producer out of the blue, and he says, hey, I would love to see what you work. I heard about you via this. I'm a Kamehameha graduate. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, I just kind of said it, and things start to roll. Granted, there is a sense of cautious optimism, but it gets me excited. So hey, if I can make something, whether it be animation or movie, I want to. And there's another one besides spelling I'm working on called Loco Mocos. If you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, then you'll see I kind of like posted like a dreamcast in my head, because I got the whole comic, and not only comic, it's comic/script, because I want to make it into like either a movie or even a series on Netflix. And that's kind of what I put out there in open. And it has all these different great characters. If you got time, Instagram, Mana Comics, go look, and you'll see all the different, maybe a lot of familiar faces, some local talent that you recognize, and it's a really cool idea. I don't want to give it away, I want to get everything squared away as far as that, because I feel that one has so much potential. I love Ma'amakua series to death, don't get me wrong, but there's certain things I know that would probably be able to step forward first. I mean, for me, Mana Comics is a constant. I got to keep feeding it. I want it to keep growing. I want single issues for each character that I have. You know what I mean? Like how Marvel did it. You know, Iron Man #1, Thor #1, Hulk #1, Portuguese Man of War #1, Gecko Man #1, which I'm working on, Super Size Solid #1. So you can see there's so much there, but like anything else, it's time and it's money. And Kickstarter has been that blessing to turn to get a lot of these project movings. And they might, if you're someone out there that wants to try something, I would suggest going to that, but have everything ready first. You can't just go in there blind. Just prepare yourself.
I think that's a good some good advice about being prepared.
Yeah, it really is. And granted, I'm not saying, yeah, I know everything, but it's because it took, like I said, to even find out what to do, research and looking and asking, that took forever. But I'm just grateful for all the people, and there's quite a lot that were able to point me in. And if you do have further questions about that, don't be ashamed to send me an email, and when I can, I'll shoot back a thing. But don't send me an email every day, okay? You know, have maybe like a group of questions so I can answer them right down the road. Like some people kind of like, I'll give them a suggestion. No, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay. And after a couple of those, I'm like, okay, good. I wish you well and good luck, but you know what I mean? But like, if you're serious and this is something you want to do, this is what makes you happy, whatever. It doesn't have to be comics. It could be like writing a story. You got this great idea. Why wait, dude? Life is short. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But I was able to open up the closet of regret and grab, you know, this one thing that made me happy, throw it in there and say, I'm willing to step forward and take a chance too. Let's do this. Let's do this. And you can too.
Awesome. So I think we'll wrap up here. So mahalo nui and Chris for sharing your mo'olelo. I'm so happy really that we got to hear from you today, especially given like, you know, our past.
Yeah, our torrid past, yes.
Yeah.
It's just missing like this.
Yeah.
This is us right there.
Yeah.
So this is nice. So thank you. Thank you.
I'm hoping one day we can have you here in the library. We can do the whole drawing thing.
I'll be there. You let me know.
Yeah. So for all of our guests, please fill out our evaluation form. We've shared the link in the chat. You can be entered to win a book tote along with a copy of either Nana Ikikumu Volume 3, An American Sunrise, or Living Nations, Living Words. And so the next Big Read Hawaii event is on April 6th at 4 p.m. And it's an introduction to genetic genealogy, enhancing your family history research using DNA. Our next installment of Mo'o ʻŌlelo is next Thursday with Brandy Nalani McDougall and Craig Santos Perez. You can head to the Mo'o ʻŌlelo website to register for those. And with that, I will mahalo everybody for coming. E malama pono kako.